Welcome to Keen on Retirement, a show dedicated to helping you thrive before and during your retirement years. If you are looking to grow and protect your wealth and want to make the second half of your life the best half, then listen in as Wealth Advisor Bill Keen sorts through the key issues that you need to know in a lively and candid way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Keen on Retirement. I'm your co-host, Steve, and we're gonna start off today's episode with something a little different. And Bill and Matt, I didn't warn you guys about this, but yes. Here we go, and hopefully they don't take this out in the editing process. So here we go.
For anybody in the audience who's got a birthday today, happy birthday to you.
That's you, Bill, and Matt. You just had one recently. All right, got a little Paul McCartney singing "Birthday." We'll take a little Beatles song here.
Oh my goodness! Do we have Paul on the episode today?
Yeah.
Are you teasing that, Steve?
Is this a cameo?
Well, that would be like my dream podcast episode. To have a conversation with Paul McCartney. I got to tell you, that would be.
Now, do we have the rights to this song? Are we going to get in trouble?
I think you'd only play it for 10 seconds or something like that, Steve.
I just stopped it so that
Okay.
nobody, Sir Paul doesn't
legal.
sue us for using his music. But yeah, speaking of McCartney, that's a question that oftentimes I'll ask people if we're just sitting around having fun or talking about philosophical things. I'll ask, if you could have dinner with anybody, and let's just limit it to anybody that's alive today, who would you want to have dinner with and why? And my answer is typically Paul McCartney. I think it would be really fascinating to have dinner with him and just the history that he's been a part of and the fact that he's still alive today as we're having our conversation in his early 80s and still in concert is, I think, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
How about, let's do that. How about for you? So again, Bill, happy birthday. Matt, happy belated birthday. Yours was here recently. Who would you guys have dinner with?
Oh, so to be clear, my birthday here, we're recording this on December 10th, which is my birthday. Matt's birthday actually is December 15th. So
yes, I haven't had it yet, Steve. You're
Haven't
age
had
right.
it yet.
Right.
Okay.
And Steve, your birthday is December 13th. So
That's correct. So
this all
guys,
could be
we're like
why
all
we-
in a row here.
it all could be why we have such a good dynamic. Now, our listeners and viewers might think that we have a poor dynamic. I mean, I'm just saying that we have a good dynamic.
Well,
Hopefully
judging by the 2 million downloads each episode gets, I think,
sure.
I think the audience has spoken loudly here.
and hey, 251 episodes now. So, I mean, something's working, right?
That's right.
But thank you for the happy birthday here on the day we're recording this. Much appreciated. I'm 57 and I live like I'm 47. What do you think about that?
And you
That's
look
what
like you're 37. So
my
you're
goodness
yeah,
gracious.
you're knocking the cover off the ball here.
Steve's
Oh,
looking
buddy.
for a raise here.
Yes, Steve. Yes, you're in.
There you go. Am I in the will?
Yeah, well, then there's that. So, so you put us on the spot here with a couple things. One, the song, which was a wonderful way to start the program today. And if you made me think about it in this short amount of time, how about Warren Buffett? I mean, there's so many that we could choose from, but you're putting us on the spot. So Warren Buffett came to mind here.
Okay.
He just,
And why? Like, what's one question you would ask Warren Buffett? Maybe this will turn out to be the whole episode, even though we've got something else planned we're going to talk about here today.
Well, you know, he recently came out with, speaking of what could be another episode, is Warren Buffett recently came out with, he stepped aside as the leader of Berkshire here after all these years. And he recently came out with a letter. I believe, Matt, he's not going to do his long address to the shareholders anymore. Is that correct? Have you seen this? Forward.
I think once he retires, he's kind of
Yeah, I think he's done with that. Yeah, I think he's done with the letter.
Yeah,
for
so
him writing it. Yeah.
He came out with a letter here in about 3 weeks ago or so, around the Thanksgiving holiday, maybe a month ago, and it was speaking on his philanthropic thoughts and how those have played over the years, and how he has his kids, which are now in their 70s, I think, right? Where he feels really, really solid about their charitable intentions and how they will direct the funds that they've are going to receive upon his death, at least to direct charitably. And just the way that he's thought about sowing his wealth back into the world in a positive way, asking him about some of those things and how he harnessed capitalism in a major way, but a very positive way. I believe very positive way. Think about all the people he's employed over the years and all the good works he's done philanthropically over so many years. And as he considers the end of life scenario, just exactly how he processes that in his mind and how he's prepared his next generation, not only for the philanthropic giving that his family will do, but also his company leaders and how he's passed the torch to those folks. Huge responsibility to the shareholders and to the communities at large. So, question around that would be something that I would want to dig deeper on with him. And he's done a good job, frankly, of sharing his thinking. We've talked about him. Matt's even been up to Omaha a time or two, listening to him, seeing him in person. But those would be some of the things, Steve, about how he is distributing wealth to make a difference in the world. It would be really interesting to hear.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Buffett, I had a chance to meet him once back in the 1990s. And
because you're from Omaha.
Because I'm from Omaha, yes.
Yeah.
And I was with my dad, and it was at a charity golf tournament that Bob Gibson, the former pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals back in the 60s. And Buffett was playing, and my dad's a big investor and has been forever. And so I said, let's go. Let's see if we can find out where Buffett is and go chat with him. So we get to a hole where he's at. And I said to my dad, let's go stand at his golf cart because he's got to come back to the golf cart after he gets off the green. So Buffett comes back over. We start making some small talk with him. And so my dad has an opportunity to ask him a question. And guess what question my dad asks him? So my dad, somewhat related to that, but my dad pulls out a $20 bill and he says, Warren, can you tell me how to turn this $20 bill into $20,000? And Warren looks at him and he says, well, I can't tell you how to do that, but I can tell you how to double it. And my dad says, well, how? And Warren says, fold it over and put it in your pocket.
Okay.
Some of his homespun wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
And so I took out a couple of bills and my dad took out a couple more and Warren signed the bills for us. So
wow.
My dad, now, silly me, I took a couple of the bills that I had signed, and when I was giving a couple of speaking engagements, I gave them away as audience engagement. So speaking to some financial audiences, I asked them a couple of questions, and I said, I've got signed Warren Buffett $20 bills here, and if anybody wants them, who's the first one to get the correct answer? So I gave mine away back in the
Steve.
90s, but yeah.
If I were you, I would have just given a 20 away and retained the ones with Buffett's signature. Yeah. My goodness. But hey, water under the bridge.
That's right.
I'm sure you got the participation you wanted from those particular speaking outings.
I got 10s on my feedback forms.
Yeah.
That's one way to buy the good reviews. So
that's right. That's right. I had to bribe people.
That's right.
How about you, Matt? What
the funny thing is Warren Buffett's who popped in my head too. Yeah, this wasn't Steve.
I'm not going to allow you to. I'm not going to allow you to use Warren as well. You got to come up.
But here's the thing. The question I would ask him, because I've read a lot about him. There was a book called The Snowball that was a biography of him that he participated in, but this author wrote a lot about him, and there was a few things like it didn't seem like he had the best relationship with his kids and family, as he was building his business. But what I wonder is there things that he wishes he would have done instead of worked so much? Because he has all this money, he's giving it all away. What kind of experiences did he miss out on? Does he think about that? Like, what are his regrets? Because when you read about what he did in his days were reading all day in his office up in Omaha. Like, you don't hear about him, and maybe he didn't have any desire to go travel a ton and do all these adventurous things, but does he have a strong relationship with his kids and grandkids and as he could have? I don't know. Only he can answer that and what's important to him. But it would be interesting because he worked up until what? Is he 97? He just now retired.
He's 95. Yeah, I think 95. He's 95. Yeah.
And he's there's maybe some wisdom in that too, that he stayed engaged and he was very very sharp. It wasn't like he went downhill or there was significant issues that people could visibly see with him as he got older. But what did he miss out on?
I obviously cannot speak for Buffett, but my guess is that he did what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously, he had all the money he ever needed. And the fact that he continued working to 95 years of age would suggest to me that he's doing exactly what he wants to do. No one was forcing him to work. And I know people as well that have a lot of money that have no desire to see the world, no desire to go out and do all kinds of different experiences. They're just very happy sort of doing their thing in their place. And so, I think it's, we shouldn't, I'm not suggesting any of us are being judgmental here, but my guess is Buffett's like, I do everything I want. I live where I want to live, which is Omaha, and I surround myself with the piece and Garage Steakhouse for lunch, and so I suspect he's pretty much did what he wanted to do, and
I know,
happy with it.
There's got to be something he regrets. You would think. I mean, he's done a lot of reflection. He's
right.
So,
right.
Who knows? And I can't imagine he's the only person who doesn't have any regrets.
Right. Well, in that book that you mentioned, I think he was unhappy with the author after it came out, because I think there were some things, to your point, that were a little unflattering. Yeah. And I think he was a little miffed about that.
Well, it does kind of paint that it was like, well, there was a cost to others, maybe within his family, that his desire to do certain things, that it impacted them maybe in a way that he didn't realize.
Yeah. Well, his wife left and moved out to, I think, San Francisco and to pursue a singing career. And his wife, if I get the story correct, said, I think you should hang with Astrid, who was their housekeeper.
Yep.
And with Warren's wife's blessing, he and Astrid became an item. Again, never got divorced. And I remember there was a story about Bill Gates. So Bill Gates was a good friend of Buffett for many years. And Gates made some comment like, in the morning I had breakfast with Warren and his wife. And then in the evening I was out to dinner with Warren and Astrid. And, everyone seemed to be, that was just fine and normal.
Okay.
But maybe Bill Gates isn't someone that should talk either. So, it was interesting. And then after Warren's wife passed away, I think he and Astrid married.
Yeah.
So, whatever seems to work for him.
It's sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It worked for him.
Their own.
Yeah.
Matt, you've shared before his wealth really started compounding after he was like, is it 50 in the 50s or 60s?
Well,
I mean, obviously it compounds
the
like
dollars
a snowball.
Changed, but the compounding happened the entire time. And that's the example we use is like, he didn't become a billionaire because it takes time to get there. And then the compounding is just so significant as the dollars get bigger. We just had our big breakfast, our holiday breakfast at our office.
That's right.
And it's a phenomenal event. And we open up our office. We do it on Saturday morning. We have Santa and live music and several of our charitable partners on site there. But I had several clients because in my office, as we've shown on the podcast, on the video for those watching, my hat.
Yeah, this is good for our YouTube viewers.
Dow 100,000.
I think it's great.
All
Matt's
right.
he's donned his hat.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I still get questions like, oh gosh, I don't know. It's like, well, we're nearly at 50,000 on the Dow. And
Right.
the compounding, it's the same concept. As the number gets bigger, the numbers will grow. I mean, but it's the percentage rate of return isn't necessarily increasing. It's just the number gets bigger. And just people have a hard time. There's just a thing, I think, with human nature as these numbers get bigger, just they don't feel it's sustainable. Which there's a lot of behavioral kind of finance things related to that. I mean, it's part of the reason why stocks split, because the number gets smaller and then people think, oh, it's less expensive, but that has nothing to do with the value of the business. It's just the stock price. Or you see it at the grocery store. Well, they might keep the box of cereal the same price, but they're putting less cereal in the box because people don't want to see a higher price. So they're just, oh, the price is the same or whatever it is. It's this anchoring that we have.
Shrinkflation.
Yeah,
that's right.
And, in Buffett's, in his strategy with Berkshire was to never split the stock. Right. I don't know where it's at today. I don't pay that close attention to it. It's some outrageous on the A share, and he finally allowed people to invest in what they call the B share that don't have the same voting rights, if just allow people to invest, which still is not cheap, relative to other like stock prices.
741,000, Matt, for the A share.
Isn't that crazy?
And the B share is $500. Around that. Yeah.
Yeah. But this anchoring that happens around these numbers, and it's, I was even reminding, during these conversations I was having, it's like the rate of return to get to 50,000 on the Dow, basically, we're very close to that today, to 100,000 it's not that high.
Right.
So at 15% for 5 years and you're there.
Well, 10% for 7, right? I mean,
that's the rule of 72. You just
10%, 7
take
years.
the rate of return, and it doubles in that number of years.
So here's a question. I mean, when I got in the industry in the early 90s, the Dow, I've shared this on episodes prior, and it's powerful. It's powerful because it's real. I've actually lived this. So the Dow was at 2,900. 2,900. Now, I guess I'm older, right? We shared already. I'm 57. So, but in a 34-year career, the Dow went from 2,900 to 48,000. What? I mean, do you see? Look at the power, the wealth building mechanism there. So one of the anchors that I talk about in the book, the Keen on Retirement, Engineering the Second Half of Life book that I wrote, was for folks to have a similar thought experiment when they're thinking about having faith in the future and faith in their plan. Yes, we will go through temporary declines in the markets and sometimes violent declines that last a year or two before things start turning around. We haven't had that since a really serious one since 08 or 09. We've had things like COVID, and there's been other, quote, bear markets where things have come down 20%, but it's gone back up pretty quickly. 08, 09 was probably the most recent. One that lasted longer and really tested people's fortitude for what they were able to withstand emotionally. You're talking about behavioral finance a little bit there, Matt. But I have people go back and look at what the Dow was on their birth date, the date they were born, because that's just another date to anchor back to. That's a real reality. Go back and look at what that was on the date you were born. And just for fun, look at where it was that then and where it is today, and ask yourself, and we've done a great job with clients, helping them have faith in the future, being allocated appropriately between stocks and bonds and fixed investments, so that when we do go through downtimes, they don't have to sell things at a bad time, and they know they have their income covered for a number of years. So they're not watching CNBC to see if they're going to have to reduce their monthly distributions in retirement just based on short-term market volatility. But when we think about that, ask yourself, if the Dow were to go from 47 or 48,000 today down to 38,000, are you more concerned about missing that, or were you more concerned about missing the move to 100,000 or 200,000? Because if it's at 100,000 in 7 years, at 10%, it would be at 200,000 in 15 years. So are we worried about the temporary declines, or we want to make sure that we're in and participating in the permanent advance? And it's just a question that we try to really drive home in our educational process here when we're talking about the reality of history and then what things look like going forward as all of our lives have been improved tremendously. Think about all of the things that we have, not only in the U.S., but around the world, for standard of living and the power of capitalism when thought about appropriately. So I think it's great to bring up, Matt. Thanks for bringing the hat out today. The oversized hat too. I really like the oversized hat there.
I know people were asking me if I still had these were just traditional, normal baseball hats that I had in our old office. I had different increments. I think I started with Dow 30,000. I mean, I found them. They're in a box in the storage closet here in the office, because we're well past that. But yeah, Dow 30,000, Dow 35, Dow 40.
Well, Matt, since we have so many YouTube viewers, and these are all on YouTube, there's a hat above your head. I'm looking back right now next to your What Works on Wall Street book. What's that one? 40, 30, 50?
That says Dow 100,000 as well.
Oh, it has 100. All right, you're just sticking with that. All right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Then I got the big one because it's easier for everyone to see.
Well, this conversation about Warren Buffett and how we're asking him, thinking about how he might have viewed things and just contemplating his journey, it really kind of speaks to, and how, look, we just said to each their own. I honor and acknowledge every single person's journey, every single person's views. We're in a very divisive time, it seems now, maybe more than ever, maybe not. I don't know. It's just more talked about.
Sometimes it depends on how much TV and social media you consume.
Yeah, that's right. 24/7 news. But when we look at, we don't want to get into this comparison trap where we're comparing others or judging others. We just be respectful of each and every person's thought processes and views and how they conduct their lives. And I think it's just a healthy way to approach things. But with that in mind, I think about some of the studies that we just recently came across.
Exactly.
And Matt had noticed us and our producers with some really interesting data, which kind of leads into us looking at a comparison of where people are always asking us, aren't they, Matt? In fact, you had somebody recently ask you, how do I compare to others?
Yeah.
And I think it leads into our topic today. We can kind of talk about them the back half of our program here.
So Fidelity, they're large, a very big asset manager, and they have a big footprint in the 401k or the retirement plan space that employers use, and they put out every quarter the average account balance. So essentially just like it's not a very deep dive, but they just put out some data related to average balances, and they break them out into different cohorts based on age. And so this data is looking, basically at the end of Q3, and it was perfect because I was meeting with this client, and they're in their mid 50s, and still planning to work for another 5 to 10 years, but they were just curious, like, okay, I have this much money saved and I'm going to continue to save, but how do I compare? And, but I just had reviewed the study. So I had the numbers fresh in my mind, and someone in his, basically in same, at Fidelity, using their averages, same age, the average 401k balance, it's about 245,000.
Okay.
And okay, I mean, that's a decent amount, but it also, when people think about that, they think, well, is that because a lot of times people here in the Midwest and a lot of folks that we're working with, they have more than that. But again, it's like these are averages, so they're going to be skewed by outliers on either side. And it also, what this doesn't include, which makes things, not necessarily, because sometimes when you hear numbers like this, or there's a news article that says, the average American is undersaved for retirement. And if you just look at this data, you might think that. I mean, again, it's all relative, kind of to Bill's point. It's like, well, what's the objective you're trying to accomplish? I mean, if you want to retire and spend a significant portion of this, it may not last very long. It's all based on the lifestyle that you want and the things that you want. Like Warren Buffett has more money than he needs. He didn't need the money to support a lifestyle in retirement. That wasn't the purpose of what he was doing. If he wanted to retire and go do other things, he probably could have done that a long time ago.
That's
so
right.
It's all just, again, relative to what you're trying to accomplish. And we help people think through that all the time. But what this doesn't include, and Fidelity does point this out, they're not trying to paint some picture that it's all doom and gloom, is that it doesn't include IRA balances. So think about that. Well, if you separate service, if you work somewhere and then leave that employer and go somewhere else, you might have a 401k with a different provider, which, unless it's with Fidelity, it wouldn't be included in their averages. But you might have rolled that or transferred it to a traditional IRA. So that's
Sure.
outside of these 401k averages. And as we know, many employees don't work at the same company for their entire career. So it's common for people to separate service and then have either multiple retirement plans, or they transfer the accounts into the new retirement plan, or they open up an IRA. I mean, again, a lot of different things that can happen post separation of service. But it also doesn't include real estate. It doesn't include outside savings. There are things there that would supplement this. Now, not to say that, okay, if you just try and factor all that in, everyone's in good shape. I mean, the reality is, I think most Americans could probably do a better job saving. But this data, it does speak to the power of compounding too.
Yes.
Because, back to what we were talking about earlier. Well, when someone is first getting started and starting to save, well, their balances aren't going to be very big. And Fidelity, they have the average account balance for someone from age 20 to 24, $7,300, which actually I was surprised. That was more than I thought it was going to be.
Right. And Matt, in those early years, there's three pieces to this. In your early years, your account is growing because you're adding money.
Yeah.
That's why it's growing. You're adding money.
Yours and the employer contribution, should you get one?
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you have $1,000 or $7,000. If the thing makes 10%, well, it's $700. But you're maybe you're putting in more than you're actually. Yeah. It's growing largely because of the deposits you're making.
Yes, it's invested hopefully correctly based on your objective, and that rate of return is it's just based on the dollars that are in there. So the dollar investment return is going to be much smaller as the balance is smaller.
That's right. There will be a time when things shift and people, it's a notable time when eventually in a normalized business cycle, you'll notice that your balance now has gotten big enough that the actual growth of the account in a given year or time period outweighs what you're putting in. So now the growth is more than you're putting in. You hit a crossover point.
Yeah.
The other crossover point you hit later in life is meaningful when clients see this, is that their account balances then at some point are growing. Now, this is down the road quite a few ways, maybe 30 years. The actual account balances over a normalized cycle are growing more annually than they're actually even making at their job, than their salaries. And it's notable points where, we really want, and Matt's doing a good job here of like talking about what it's like up front, and then the shift, the magic miracle of compounding, how it evolves, and it's really fun. But it's not an overnight process, is it?
No, it takes a long time to get there, and that's what especially when we meet with younger clients, several of them maybe children or grandchildren of our current clients, and they might just be entering the workforce, or they're young and just getting started. And just talk about, look, just get this on autopilot.
Yes.
Don't even think about it. The balance doesn't matter. Just percentage of income, how much you save, make sure it's allocated correctly, and then just forget about it. But keep doing it. Don't turn it off, but and then you'll look up, and again, it takes time, but you'll look up and those balances will grow significantly. And the more you can save early on, the better, because the power of compounding, again, is going to be in your favor. We've shared data on here before. It's like the people who start saving right out of school, maybe their first job, however that looks for them. And then let's say they save for the first 10 years and then stop saving. Will have more money than the person who delayed saving for the first 10 years and then saved for the next 20 years.
Right.
Because of the power of compounding.
Now, ideally, you do both. You start early and keep her going.
You just save the entire time. And what happens, and it just becomes, you become financially kind of independent at a certain point. It doesn't mean, okay, you hit a balance and you have to stop working, but it provides lots of options. And people feel much better when they have options, because they've saved early on and they set themselves up for success. Now, back to kind of my question for Warren Buffett, like the regrets. So there is a balance to it too. It's not just save everything for the future. Like you're just trying to wish time by as quickly as possible, and just so you can get to retirement and then start having fun.
That's right.
Because you've got to enjoy the journey. There isn't okay, all of a sudden now you're going to just do all these things because, well, one, I mean, most people retire and they're much older than when they were younger. And two, you don't know what your health is going to be like. You don't know what your family dynamics and the situation is going to be like. So you've got to balance that.
That's right. That's right.
It's not just save everything for the future.
It's like, I liken it to going on a diet and thinking that you have to be perfect. And so I stick to the 80-20 rule. It's working actually very well. 80% of the time, I do try to really be thoughtful about what I'm eating. Mm-hmm. You've got to be able to, in my opinion now, everybody has their journey, right? Like we said earlier. Yeah. But if you're trying to be too perfect, you might just abandon the whole thing and say, this is too hard, I'm not going to do it. So the same thing comes, like what Matt's saying, get a solid program in place. At some point, if a young person could get up to saving 15%, they used to say 10%. Really, I'm looking at more of like a 15% of their.
Now, if you conclude employer match, 10 on your own, maybe 5 on a match, if you get it. Yeah, you're at 15.
Yeah, that's right. And then to your point, enjoy it within reason. Enjoy your life. Find that balance that you can stick to. That's the key. It's consistency. Truly is.
Yeah. And this idea of balance, you guys may know that for many years at the beginning of each year, I do a little exercise. Initially, it was called the My 3 Words exercise, where I would come up with 3 words that would sort of be my theme for the year. Well, last year I did something different. I came up with what I call my 3 polarities. And instead of individual words, they were 2 words that were sort of opposite of each other. And they were 2 words that were both important to me. And the idea was, by having these 2 words that were opposite yet still important to me, they would force me to really think about the tension and the interplay between these 2, and helping me to make good decisions about, how far do I want to go in this direction versus that direction, because both of these were important to me. And just to kind of give you an idea of what those were in 2025, one of them, and I've done a lot of sailing here in the past 3 years, and so some of these had a nautical theme, but one of them was slack flood. So if you think about tides, slack tide is when the tide is neither going in or coming out. Okay. It's sort of that middle period where there's nothing really happening with it. And then flood is when the tide is coming in and, the water's rising, sort of thing. So my idea there was simply, I want to make sure that I'm not constantly on the go, constantly moving forward, pushing myself, which is sort of the flood tide idea. And I want to make sure I'm taking enough time to just slack off and just have the rest in between. So it was my way of thinking about when do I want to be, moving forward, pushing things along versus when do I just want to relax and chill. And so I'm doing the same thing again here in 2026, but this idea of, and the reason why I'm sharing this is when you talk about when it comes to money and how, yes, we want to save for the future, but we also don't want to do it at the expense that our current life is miserable.
Yep.
And so I haven't finalized it yet, but I'm thinking one of my polarities for 2026 is going to be very simply short-term, long-term. And it's going to just be my constant reminder about, and money is a good example. Like this, there's a lot of things that play into short-term, long-term. And I think about spending my money now while we're healthy and travel and experiences and everything versus not too much that 20 years from now, I don't want to be running out of it sort of thing. And so I'll just share that idea with all the listeners that if you're looking for something interesting to do in 2026 is come up with 3 sets of polarities, which are words or activities or concepts that both are important to you, but they may sort of be at opposite ends of the spectrum, and just playing with those and figuring out how to segue and move in and out between the two, I think is important. And I've structured my polarity such that they essentially need each other.
Love it.
Meaning I can't do one without the other. So like short-term, long-term. I mean, I live today, I live in the moment.
Yep.
But I also have to remember that I hope I'm having moments 20, 30, 40 years from now too. So I can't neglect that. I can't just like eat cookies and cream ice cream with hot fudge every night before I go to bed, or else I won't have a long term. So I'll just throw that idea out there.
Yeah, Steve, I love that idea. I heard a respected speaker recently say something that really resonated with me. And I know we're free associating here this time of year and help people think about how they might want to be looking forward to 2026 and those ideas that they want to focus on, those experiences that they might want to focus on with family or friends or charitable endeavors or work or whatever feeds someone's soul and inspiration. But I heard a speaker recently say, budgeting money, budgeting your capital, budgeting your dollars, working with your dollars and having a plan is so much easier than something else because, and I'll tell you the something else in a moment, but budgeting money because your balances. If you've done the work, let's say you've worked with a fiduciary advisor or you're just aware of your situation, your balances, so the truth and the reality about what you've got to budget. The other thing I was going to mention, though, that's a little bit harder, but I think it slips our mind, is how do we manage and budget our time? Because unlike money and dollars, it's the thing that we don't know what our balance is. We do not know how much we have left. Now, I'm not trying to be morbid here. And you might say, well, no, time is the great equalizer. We all have 24 hours in a day and all that. But that's not what the speaker was referencing. The speaker was referencing, we don't know what tomorrow brings. So we know what average life expectancies are. Hopefully we're living healthy lives and we select against those and we go longer, but we actually don't know for sure. So being aware of that and saying, how do I really want to spend my time each and every day and being intentional about that. I know we all have obligations, we work and do other things, but I think we really can get our minds around focusing for 2026 with the responsibilities that we all have collectively and individually. How do we want to spend the additional time or the extra time that we do have and really look at it because we don't know what that budget is. We don't know what remains. Interesting thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should be a whole episode here as we close out the year and maybe to start the new year. Just something about like words of wisdom that we've picked up over the years, whether it's something we heard from our parents or something that we heard in a speech that we attended or a book that we read. I think that'd be a lot of fun just to talk about, share some of our wisdom that we've gleaned over the years and and pass that along. I think that'd be a fun episode.
Well, I think it would be too. And, Matt and I, we've had the privilege of now for many years, I mean, collectively 60 years between the two of us, sitting down with, thousands of our folks.
Right. Yeah.
Over so many years. Exactly. So I learned
wisdom from clients.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, yes, we're advisors. We advise folks. We advise folks on their anything with a dollar sign or decimal point, but also things like family dynamics, charitable giving, legacy issues, so many things that aren't just dollar signs and decimal points. So they might be integrated a little bit, but we go through so many life issues with people. We see folks navigate the joys of life and also the pains of life.
Yeah.
And so that 60 plus years of being able to do that, you're right, Steve, we've learned a lot, and I honor and respect so many of the folks that we've had the privilege of advising in the past and today on how they've navigated those things and the learnings we can derive from that. So yeah, you've just given us kind of a marching orders for an episode that I think will be really impactful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, let's wrap up with just one more thing as it relates to this sort of comparison idea. And I do want to share, and I'm not the one who coined this phrase. I'm not sure exactly who did, but the phrase is comparison is the killer of contentment. So I just want to throw that out as a caveat that if we're always comparing ourselves, and this is not a profound insight or anything, I'm sure, all of you listening to this understand it, but if we're always comparing ourselves to other people, that's that's a bit of a recipe for unhappiness. And so I think rather than comparing to someone, let's compare from. And what I mean by that is let's compare from where we've been and look at where we started to where we are today. So we talked earlier about, well, what was the Dow Jones Industrial Average the year you were born?
Sure.
And I just looked it up while we were talking here a few minutes ago. The year I was born, the month I was born, it was just over 700.
700
on the Dow Jones, just over 700.
Okay,
now I'm showing my age. I'm the old man here of the three of us. And today, we're pushing close to, I guess, to 50,000. So quite a change in my lifespan. So comparing it from, as opposed to, when is it going to hit 100, as Matt was talking about. So that's the caveat. All right. So here's the final thing I think we should wrap up with. There's a common rule of thumb in our profession, which says that at a certain age, you should have saved some multiple of your annual income, okay, for your retirement. And so I'm going to hit you guys with this. So at let's say age 50, and this comes from some Fidelity data, based on their calculations and how much you might spend in retirement and how long you live and all that good stuff. Lots of assumptions here. By age 50, how many times your annual income should you have saved for retirement?
I know. I read the article, so I do have a general idea, but I don't know the exact one at age 50. I think it's 6 times your income.
So I'm looking at the article, Steve. I mean, I'm just going to be square. It says 6 times your income. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you should have saved 600 by age 50. I think that's probably, in my opinion, a little light, but I know they're thinking about there's other income sources like Social Security and pensions and maybe other things as well. But their study says 6 times.
Yeah, which is what it says. Yep. And then at age 60, they're saying 8 times. And then at age 67, they're saying 10 times. And I think 10 times is the number that I've commonly heard people say, yeah, you need to save 10 times your annual income before you retire, kind of thing. And so here they're saying at age 67. So yeah, Bill, you just said, yeah, I think maybe that's a little bit light. So expand upon that for just a moment. Based on your guys' experience here, do you see, I guess maybe a first question is, when people retire, I've often heard people say, oh, you're only going to spend 80% of what you spent when you were working when you're in retirement. Well, I know there's that's not necessarily a great rule of thumb, but what do you guys think about the 10X number, and then also how much we actually spend in retirement?
We typically, when we're modeling someone's plan, and we've again been doing this a long time. In fact, you can go back to the 10 years ago, our first episode. I think we might have even talked about this on one of the first several when we were talking about financial planning. Has it evolved? Of course, it's evolved, but the core wisdom has not evolved. I mean, there are core things that do not evolve. And if you look at most people that we work with want to build a portfolio. We call it the corpus or the principal of an account that they can, at some point, you stop adding money yourself and you start taking money out. I mean, that's the objective. So very simply, you build your assets and your nest egg so that you can get to a point of financial independence that Matt referenced earlier, and now start pulling money out to live on and do other things. And you never exhaust your portfolio, ideally. The idea is you don't want to run out of money before you run out of life. Some people have legacy goals that say, not only do I not want to run out of money, but I want to have a larger pool of assets to pass on to kids or charities or grandkids. Everybody's different. Some people say that you hear that thing, they want the last check to bounce to the undertaker. That's really hard to do because we don't have the exact dates there. So, but everyone's different. But so if you think about it, we've looked at over time, a withdrawal rate off your assets of somewhere around 4 to 5% of the total. When you're younger, the money has to last longer. Mm-hmm. You want to take out a little less than that, call it 5% or just a little less overall. When you get older, if you're in your 80s and I'm still telling you can only spend 4% of your total, or you're 88, they're going to say, hey, pal, this money doesn't need to last that long. I'm going to spend more as a percentage of the total in any given year. So these are moving targets, and they're based on other income that you might have, like Social Security. Maybe the couple has 2 Social Securities that can really be meaningful, frankly. We see couples, that have $70,000 or $80,000 of income coming in just from Social Security. So you have to always think about those other assets in the holistic objective of the plan. But having 10 times your income only in a portfolio, and if you were making $100,000 in the example I said earlier, if you had 10 times your income just in an investment portfolio, you would have $1 million. And if you took out 5% of the total, that would only be $50,000. There's very easy math here. So in my opinion, it would be nice to have closer to 2 million instead of 1 million. And look, it's very, very feasible to do this over a 40-year career. We've talked about the snowballing effect.
Yep.
But maybe at a minimum, that 1 million, like that 10x plus other income sources, I could get behind it a little bit, but I think it's a minimum. What do you think, Matt?
No, I agree, and it's all relative to how much do you need after taxes too. That's it. It's a function of that, because it doesn't matter what your working income is.
So what do you need?
What you want to spend is significantly less or significantly more than that.
That's right.
Yes, it's a rule of thumb, but at the same time, when you're getting closer to to retirement, and even when you're a couple of decades away, because you still have a lot of time on your side. I mean, it is important. We tell folks, if you should always be meeting with someone to kind of talk about this, and the sooner you start, the better. And the savings and the tweaks you have to make to your potential current lifestyle are very minimal, because you have time on your side. When you're older and you have less time on your side, you might have to save significantly more of your income than you want to, or you might be forced into retirement sooner than you expected, and now you have to adapt. So, again, it's like,
that's right.
The sooner you start, the better. However, it's just a function of your lifestyle.
That's right. And Matt, like to the point earlier, I mean, some people want to make sure their asset continues to grow as they withdraw, so they're pulling out less money. Other people don't care that there is a plan to eat down the principal. Yeah. It's intentional, though. It's not a surprise. They're spending more, understanding that they're not going to have a huge
the money
legacy
isn't going to last their lifetime.
It's a personal decision for each and every family, which I think is good to speak on.
Yeah, and I want to wrap up here with a teaser, and this was prompted by something that you said here just a moment ago, Bill, when you said, we've heard that old saying that, hey, I want the check to the undertaker to bounce when I die, right?
Well, we did a podcast called on the book Die with Zero. I won't revert back to that. Remember, we did that on the book that came out, and it had some thoughts about that, but please go ahead.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, Linda and I participated in a 4-day celestial navigation workshop.
Oh.
So we learned how to basically navigate in the middle of the ocean using a sextant and nautical almanac and sight tables and stars and all that good stuff. Well, interestingly, the guy who teaches this class is a world famous sailor, and he's in addition to being a sailor, he's an author, and he's just an interesting philosopher, let's say.
Okay.
And he said, sometimes well, basically every time we're out in the ocean late in the afternoon, we're having our little sundowners and we start waxing philosophically about life. And he said, I'll always ask the crew a question just to kind of get things started. And he said, one of the questions that I ask is, I'm going to give you a bet and you can choose which of these two options you want. And option number one is, I know for certainty that you will have great health up until age 78. And when you turn 78, you're going to die a peaceful death. But you're going to die with great health up until age 78. And you know with certainty, then you're going to die that day. Or all bets are off and you just take whatever's going to happen in your life as it's going to happen. And, maybe you live a long time, maybe you don't, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm not going to ask you to answer that question today. We're going to save that for the next episode. So people are going to have to listen.
Cliffhanger.
And if you've made it to the end of this episode, I want you to think about that question. Are you going to take that bet? And maybe a second question related to that is, if not age 78, because maybe some of the folks listening to this are in their early 70s and they're in good health and they're not going to take that bet.
Right.
What is the age at which you would take that
yeah.
bet? So I think there's some interesting variations of this question. So we'll leave you with that. So Bill, Matt, as always, thank you. Bill, happy birthday again. Mm-hmm. Matt, happy upcoming birthday here in a few days here as well. And appreciate everyone listening to this. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about today or in previous episodes, please reach out to us. For those of you that are clients of the firm, you can simply reply to any of the emails that we send to you, any of the communications to go out, just simply reply and we get those. And if you're not a client of ours, please just go to the website, keenwealthadvisors.com. And there's plenty of places there where you can just click a button and get in touch with us. And we'd love that. Tell all your friends and colleagues about the podcast here. Go to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you check that out and subscribe to that. And we appreciate that. And we will catch all of you on the next episode of Keen on Retirement.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Steve. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.
The Steve Sandusky Advisor Network and Belay Advisor are not affiliated with Keen Wealth Advisors. Opinions expressed by Steve are his own and not necessarily the opinions of Keen Wealth Advisors. Keen Wealth Advisors is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Keen Wealth Advisors and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. The contents of this podcast are intended for the residents of the United States of America. No advice may be rendered by Keen Wealth Advisors unless a client service agreement is in place. This program is intended for informational purposes only and should not be construed as advice on or a recommendation of any particular investment, strategy, or as tax or legal advice for your specific situation. Keen Wealth Advisors is not a tax or legal advisor. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your licensed professional prior to investing. Information in this program was compiled from sources believed to be reliable. Due to the constant state of data changing, we do not guarantee the timeliness or the accuracy of the information provided. Our views or opinions at the time you are listening to the podcast may be different than they were when the podcast was recorded. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any prices that are referenced or market forecasts are as of the date stated and are not necessarily our opinions moving forward. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. This podcast is not allowed to be copied, distributed, published, or reproduced without permission from Keen Wealth Advisors.